Hello, NAMLE community. Thank you, NAMLE leadership and fellow media literacy educators for joining to learn more about Inquire to Transform LLC. I'll be guiding you through sample lesson resources for secondary English language arts and social studies classroom teachers called Humanizing Media Literacies, Critical Analysis and Compassionate Making. My name is Dr. Andrea Gambino, and my pronouns are she, her. I am the CEO and founder of Inquire to Transform LLC, which is an educational consulting firm dedicated to creating thoughtful, community responsive strategies that promote media literacy education and project based learning. I come to this work as a former secondary English language arts and social studies educator and as a researcher and educational leader in higher education. Inquire to Transform centers the lives of educators, considering how their identities, wisdom, and lived experiences shape their beliefs and practices for teaching and learning in the classroom. We harness the power and potential of inquiry and curiosity to consider how learning communities can create meaningful change by naming challenges facing their local and global communities. And that starts best by asking questions. Inquire to Transform also relies on relational bonds and trust, rooted in a commitment for centering humanizing forms of education. This includes analyzing and creating media that honors the inherent dignity, histories, and genius of young people. We engage in the joyful and heavy work of learning by doing and co-creating hope and action. I built this from a space of possibility. We co-create research, curriculum, and professional development and educational programming that speaks to real-world challenges on a personal, political, local, and global scale. We recognize at Inquire to Transform an opportunity to add to the historical record and to our collection of voices towards educational futures that do not yet exist, but are always worthy of taking action for. Now let's take a look at some sample resources from Inquire to Transform. And we invite you to subscribe to our Substack Between Classes with Dr. Andrea Gambino, which includes narrative storytelling about teaching and learning with and about media literacy, including ready to use and adapt lessons for teachers interested in deepening or trying out media literacy. Let's check out an example that's a special feature for Media Literacy Week about humanizing media literacies through critical analysis and compassionate making. This micro unit threads together media analysis and compassionate media making for learners in English language arts and social studies classes in grades 9 to 12 for about 2 weeks and requires minimal materials. The purpose of this micro unit is for students to engage in critical media analysis and compassionate media creation, critiquing how people and the planet are represented in media and authoring their own texts that promote empathy and justice. Compassionate media making taps into students' genius and their creative crafts, inviting their ways of meaning making and storytelling by combining print, digital, and multimodal forms of communication. This micro unit covers English language arts standards for reading literature, reading informational text, writing, speaking, and listening, which are part of the Common Core state standards, and emphasizes NAMLE's revised core principles, especially Principle 9. And it also draws on the critical media literacy framework, conceptual understandings, and guiding questions, which get at how media is constructed. It asks learners to make observations about how messages are communicated. It asks students to consider the role of audiences and positionality when interpreting text. And it also explores how representation and misrepresentation can shape meaning. And it also explores the role of production and institutions and the motives behind media messages. Ultimately, it also considers how media can promote or stifle social and environmental justice. This micro unit also invites students to delve into inquiry using guiding questions, asking students, how do you define compassion? What does compassion look like in media representation and storytelling? How can you create compassion through critical analysis and compassionate media making? At the lesson level, students will explore these lines of inquiry through cycles of media analysis and creation, which involve asking students to make connections using provided media text and curating their own examples. It asks them to celebrate and acknowledge positive representations that honor compassion in terms of how social identities, accurate and ethical information is portrayed, and in terms of providing multiple perspectives. It also engages students in the art of critique, asking them to identify negative and incomplete representations. And then it also asks students to create, to make critical media that celebrates identities and honors informed storytelling and leverages media making to add to the historical record and promote social and environmental justice, compassion, and empathy. For example, let's take a sneak peek at Lesson 1, which begins by asking students to engage in a free writing exercise to make connections with how they define compassion, how compassion shows up in storytelling, and how media can be used as a tool for compassion. Students will make a collective representation of their free write and their discussion by making a graffiti wall, by making a class journal entry, or a social media style post. Next, this lesson asks students to consider a model media text that celebrates multiple points of view and offers a call in for compassion. We examine popular musician and artist Joy Oladokin's If You've Got a Problem, which offers an entry point for students to consider how this song embodies and promotes compassion through songwriting and storytelling. Then students engage in critique using this same text to consider what voices are missing and what perspectives and issues could deepen the storytelling and representation. In this early stage of the micro unit, they make together a collective exercise to create through curation by developing a community compassion playlist. Each student selects one song, podcast, or another short clip, and they will create this all together. They'll engage in a short reflection around this media promotes compassion because, and they'll explain why it matters. They will also invite family, friends, and community members to find their own representations of compassion and to explain why it is meaningful to them. This full micro unit includes several lessons, and we invite you to take a closer look at how students explore compassionate media making and promote more just representations through critical media literacy. In addition to lesson resources and curriculum development like this example, Inquire to Transform also supports research and evaluation about media literacy and project-based learning, as well as provides teacher and other forms of professional development for faculty. The work of humanizing media literacy education requires all hands, hearts, and minds on deck. So we ask that you join this work at Inquire to Transform and know that we want to connect with you. So please follow me on TikTok at Dr. Andrea Gambino and subscribe to our Substack at Between Classes with Dr. Gambino to receive this lesson resource and exchange ideas with our community. You can also explore and contact us via our website, inquiretotransform.com. Thank you, media literacy scholars and trusted partners at the National Association for Media Literacy Education. Please connect with us at inquiretotransform.com, and we'll look forward to seeing you between classes.